Now let's look at the next game that I want to talk about, which is Atlanta at Tampa Bay. It's a similar game, but opinions on this line are much more divided than St. Louis and Arizona. Although there are some seeing another road favorite that should be much higher. The people who are looking at it that way point to the fact that the teams that Tampa Bay's wins have come against have all had losing records, while they're 0-4 against teams with winning records. But the other side sees this game as, again, the classic kind of game that the books will do very well with, that the public will pound a hype road favorite and then lose. And here are some quotes from SBR supporting both sides. First of all, supporting the home dog, a guy writes, "This looks like a great trap and a public bloodbath in the works." Another guy writes, "Tampa gets it done. This team played very respectable last week against Baltimore away from home. Atlanta's a great team, but they're overhyped right now and might be vulnerable in this spot." But then supporting the road favorite, one guy writes, "It's the quote-unquote divisional home dog trend. Even if that trend hits 60%, I think that this is one of the 40% of lines that end up working out for the visitors." And then another guy writes, simply, "Game will be similar to when the Bucs played the Saints and Steelers at home earlier this year." And of course, they got blown out both times. So what do you make of this line? Scott Kellen, 6 Cent Sports.
Yeah, I'm probably going to lean a little bit towards Tampa, Peter. And I went against Tampa both in the Pittsburgh game and the New Orleans game. Also went against them at Atlanta a few weeks ago when they lost by 6. And actually were going in for the winning touchdown, and I think they got stopped on 4th and goal from the 1 or 2 yard line. I actually had a chance to win that game. And then was fortunate last week I had them at Baltimore when they got the late score. But Tampa Bay, they give up 4.7 yards a rush, but in their last 5 games, they have not given up more than 4.3 yards per rush, and really improved on the defensive side. For a while there, they weren't sacking the quarterback, but 2 weeks ago at San Francisco, they had 6 sacks. Last week at Baltimore, which I would consider a little bit more impressive, they had 4 more sacks. They're actually playing decent defense right now. Since LeGarrette Blount has started running the ball for them, that's helped them a little bit on the offense. They certainly have big play capability, and I just don't respect Atlanta's defense. But in watching the game against Green Bay last week, I really understand what Atlanta does here. They give up 5.9 yards a play to a collection of teams that are averaging 5.3 yards a play. They give up 7 yards a pass against a collection of teams who average 6.2 yards per pass. So they're well below average on defense. But what they do is, I believe they probably lead the league in 10-plus play drives. They hold on to the ball. They don't commit turnovers. I don't think they've committed any turnovers the last 4 weeks or so. They don't commit penalties either to kill their drives or to keep their opponent's drives alive. Last week in the Packer game, the Packers had 3 drives in the first half and 4 drives in the second half. Atlanta had 4 drives in both halves. And, Atlanta is below average from a yards per play standpoint, but they only give up 19 points a game to teams that actually average 22 points a game. And that's a reflection of them holding the ball with those long drives, limiting the opponent to how many drives they get. So their defense is not exposed as bad as they might be with other teams. So Atlanta plays good fundamental football. It's hard to go against them. I don't know that I bet Tampa Bay. I actually have a pretty good system on them. I went against the Falcons a couple weeks ago when they were at St. Louis. It didn't work out, but St. Louis, with about 6 minutes left in that game, threw a little shuffle pass for an interception on the 2-yard line. They were going in for the winning drive. So Atlanta is certainly vulnerable. They haven't won any road games by more than 3 other than their game at Cleveland. And really, I think the only way they won that game, Seneca Wallace got hurt, Jake Delhomme came in, got sacked, threw some picks, and really helped Atlanta get the lead back and win that game. So I'm going to lead towards Tampa, but I probably wouldn't bet it just because I respect Atlanta and the way they play.
Right, yeah, it's a very tough line. John Ryan, do you have any insight into this line?
That was a pretty good summary there, and with good detail on this game. I agree, this is a tough call. On the one hand, you have an Atlanta team that's leading the NFC conference that, in my opinion, is really not getting much respect at all from the other talking heads and media outlets. Most of the attention's on Michael Vick and the Eagles as the new team to beat now in the NFC. Meanwhile, Tampa Bay is quietly flying under the radar, again, with not much attention brought to them. So this is a very intriguing matchup. You have a situation, I think, where if the goal for the Falcons is to keep Matt Ryan clean and get Mike Williams involved in the offense as quickly as possible, Tampa then is going to have to resort back to a softer cover 2, and ironically that's called a soft Tampa 2. And what that defense does is eliminates the big play. As our colleague has said, the idea with the Tampa defense is not to give up the big play and force a team to keep long drives intact. Eventually, those type of drives end up with a mistake or a penalty or a holding call, and you end up with a field goal or a punt, and most of the game takes place between the 20s. I really don't have any other insight into this game. Freeman has been just excellent all year in executing the offense, and now Tampa has 2 running backs. And again, this is supporting Tampa, obviously, because they have 2 running backs that'll set up play-action pass and force the Atlanta defense to respect the run. They can also take one of those backs, put them in motion, get one of the linebackers out of the middle. It opens up the middle for the running game or a play-action pass with a slant pattern to their tight end. So there's a lot of intriguing matchups to watch in this game, and I'm certainly not I don't have a feel for who's going to come out on the winning side.
Right.
Tampa Bay, however, is 11-2 in home games against teams with a turnover margin of +1 or better per game since 1992. And I believe we were talking about turnover margin and the ability of Tampa Bay not to give up the ball. So I think that's a factor.